Hello, everyone. I am Rona Mae Bernaldez, and I am your student teacher for today. And so now let's delve into a discussion. And our topic is all about the design thinking process. And as for the design thinking process, we have five, which is empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. But as for our discussion today, we will be focusing on empathize, define, ideate, and prototype because the remaining topics will be presented, or the continuation of this design thinking process topic will be presented by the next presenter. And so now let's take to our discussion. So first, empathize. When we say empathize, this is the first stage of the design thinking process that focuses on user-centric research, and you want to gain empathetic understanding of the problem you are trying to solve. In this stage, this is where the entrepreneur gathers information through interview and such in order to find the customer's needs. Now, this is an example of finding a way on how to make your product better. This is how you are going to empathize your customers' experiences, and so that you can find a practical solution for an existing problem and to make for a betterment of your product. Did you get it? And so now for the second one is to define. And as for the define, you will organize the information you have gathered during the empathize stage, and you'll analyze your observations to define the core problems you and your team have identified up to this point. So it means the information that you have gathered from your interviews, from your identified customers, you have to define the core problem in it. So in define stage, this is where you find a practical solution as correlated to the first stage, which is to empathize. When we empathize, of course, we find the problems, and when we say define, that is where we find the practical solutions for our product and to make a development in our existing product. So now let's jump into ideate. So in this stage, thinking during the third stage of the design thinking process, of course, the designers are ready to generate ideas, and you've grown to understand your users and their needs in the empathize stage, and you've analyzed your observations in the define stage to create a user-centric problem statement. And this this is where you think of how you are going to develop your product. It's somewhat like how you are going to actually put your assessment into an actual action of the existing problem in your product. So I hope you get it. Now, it is a user-centric problem statement. It is a stage where you analyze your observation in the define stage. Jump into the prototype. When we see the prototype, it is the fourth phase where you identify the possible solutions, and this is the experimental phase. And the aims is to identify the possible solutions for each of the problems identified during the first three stages. And the solutions are implemented within the prototypes, and one by one. They are investigated, and they accepted, improved, or rejected based on the user's experiences. Of course, in the fourth stage, this is where we find the prototype. The prototype is somewhat like a blueprint you created based on the three observations from the defining from, empathize, define, and from the what else? Ideate. This is actually the whole practical solutions that you've been redirected or aim to have find a solution, and this is where you or how you are going to present the product, like the practical solutions. How will you implement this, and this is how should it works. This stage or this phase where you create a simple ideas through sketches, or the versions of ideas turns into models, sketches. So that's how the prototype thing happens. To sum up our discussion for today, when we say empathize, it is where we gain empathetic understanding of the problem that we are trying to solve for our customers. And for the define, what was that again? This is where we analyze our observation to define the core problems that you and your team have identified up to this point. And as for the ideate, this is where we fully or truly understand the needs in the empathize stage, and we've analyzed already the observations in the define, of course, to create a user-centric problem statement. This is where we trigger, this is where we think about a possible or practical solutions, right? And as for the prototype, this is actually where we present our possible practical solutions through our maps, models, or the product presentation, wherein it should be done for to to identify the best possible solution for each of the problems identified during the first three stages. So I hope you guys understand everything. And so now I guess that concludes my topic, and thank you.